Just when you thought it couldn't get any worse for Liam Lawson, it looks as though it's about to. Just when you thought that Red Bull could not sink any lower in regards to the treatment of their drivers, they have. While it does look as though they are in a sticky situation after the first two races of 2025, the car isn't quick enough, the Constructors' Championship looks already out of reach, and the latest junior driver to be promoted to the senior team is struggling. But is it so bad to the point where seriously considering dropping the driver that they hired to replace Sergio Perez after they paid him off to terminate his contract early, just 2 races into the 2025 season, is a decision worth taking? That is the rumour that is currently doing the rounds. Lawson will be dropped after just 2 races. April Fool's Day seemingly has come early, but unfortunately this is not a joke. It really does look as though Red Bull is going to sit down over the coming days, go over the data, discuss the situation and come to a decision as to whether they will continue with Lawson going into the next round in Japan. We've had some crazy out of the blue Red Bull hirings and sackings down the years, but this would surely, if it does turn out to be true, top the lot. So why is Red Bull contemplating making a change this early into the season? Well, it's fair to say that Liam has had a difficult start to the season. In fact, it's been a real struggle. 2 races, no points. But that's just part of the story, because it's Liam's qualifying performances that have really grabbed the headlines. 18th in Melbourne, 20th in sprint qualifying in China, and then 20th again for the main race. There's no other way of looking at it. It has been a complete disaster. It is nowhere near the levels that are expected from a Red Bull driver. And just to make it worse, it's the worst run of qualifying results that a Red Bull driver has ever recorded since Red Bull came into Formula 1 in 2005. It's brought back that old conundrum of the second Red Bull seat being cursed, because first it was Gasly, then it was Albon, then it was Checo, and now it is Lawson. That's 4 drivers in the last 6 years that have not been able to churn out the type of results that are expected from a Red Bull driver. You really do have to ask, how long can this go on for? Because it is just the same story over and over again. Go back to last year and Red Bull hired Lawson because they felt that he had both the speed and the mental resilience to cope with being Max Verstappen's teammate. And while that still may be true, the speed just isn't there. It's not even close. But is that more of a Liam problem, or is it actually a Red Bull problem? If this was a one-time thing, the blame would be entirely on Lawson's shoulders. But given that this is the 4th different driver to face the chop, it's the other way around. All the blame has to lie with Red Bull, because it's gone completely past it being all down to the driver. Red Bull has been a one-car team since pretty much 2019. The car is designed to Max's liking. What he wants, he gets, and that's understandable, because at the end of the day, he is a 4-time world champion and he is their clear number 1. But like I said, we're at a point where the drivers are not to blame. It is all on Red Bull for those failures. Time and time again, they have put their drivers in a situation where they simply cannot win. Red Bull is always keen to make the point of how they have made the careers of several drivers who have gone on to achieve great things in Formula 1 and without whom wouldn't have even had the chance to race in Formula 1 in the first place. But at the same time, they fail to acknowledge the careers that they have derailed. Gasly, Albon and Checo are and were not bad drivers. 2 of them are currently still on the grid and are flourishing in new environments, while the other is eyeing up a potential seat and potential comeback for 2026. Lawson too is not a bad driver. He is just living the same story that those before him have faced. What's more, how can Red Bull really sit there and say that Liam has had a fair crack at it? Because it's not just the 2 races. It's also the fact that those races were at circuits that Liam had never driven before. And one of those was in wet conditions. Liam had never driven the car in those type of conditions before. And the other was a sprint weekend, so just the 1 practice session. Lawson has admitted that he needs time, but he doesn't have it on his side. But if that's the case, then Red Bull has to stick by him and afford him that time, so that then he can get used to the car and feel more comfortable with it. If Red Bull does decide that it's going to pull the plug, then Yuki Tsunoda is reportedly being lined up to take that seat, which obviously would be a surprise, since that he was overlooked for that seat in the first place. I mentioned this in one of my previous videos before at the time, that I felt that Yuki was more deserving of getting that seat over Lawson, because 1, he was more experienced, and I felt that he had come on leaps and bounds over the last few years as a driver. But my worry is, if Yuki does get that seat, the situation will not be any different, and that Red Bull will still be left with the same predicament. Still, Yuki does deserve the chance to show his worth, even if Lawson was quite punchy in his opinion of him when speaking to the media in China. But let's wait and see if this speculation does turn out to be accurate. Christian Horner hasn't exactly refused to rule out the swap from taking place, even if he has insisted that it will stand by Liam and support him as best as it can. But truth be told, I really do hope that Lawson's Red Bull career is not over before it's hardly begun, because at the end of the day, they hired him for their own reasons, and they need to stick by those reasons. They can't just hit the panic button because those 2 races have not gone to plan. It shows desperation. The next track is Suzuka, which of course Lawson has driven on both in Super Formula when he drove in that series and did drive for AlphaTauri in 2023. So it may just be the confidence boost that he needs to drive on a track that he knows well, and he can turn around his fortunes if he is given that chance, of course. Since I wrapped up filming yesterday, there's been a big change. And no, I'm not talking about the fact that I've had my hair cut. I'm talking about the fact that there's been a development in this story. As it turns out, it has been reported by several media outlets that the move is on. This is going to happen. Tsunoda will be in for the Japanese Grand Prix driving a Red Bull, and Lawson will be demoted back to V-Carb. Now, while there hasn't been official confirmation from Red Bull itself, this is only going to beg the question as to why they didn't give Tsunoda the drive in the first place and not have to go through this whole mess, which is only going to humiliate Lawson and leave him with the unwanted record of having the least amount of starts for any Red Bull driver. It only goes to show that the Red Bull operation is ruthless. It always has been, and it probably always will be. But a move like this, for me, is simply a step too far. So there you have it. What do you make of the situation? Should Lawson be dropped, or do you think that Red Bull would be crazy to let him go just 2 races into the season? Be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Also, make sure to like the video, and please, if you are new around here, do subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.